And we're live.
Hey, everybody. Hello.
Hey.
Welcome to Sales Top to Bottom. I'm your host, Keenan. I'm with the lovely Becc. Becc,
Yes,
why are you wearing a pink vest in your house at night?
because it's cold in Paris now. I'm cold.
Do they not have heat?
They don't actually. So I actually got, you can't see it, but I got a fake fireplace and put it in my real fireplace.
And does pink radiate heat or something? Or you just went with the hot pink for the sake of hot pink?
I've been going with hot pink a lot recently. I've been leaning into the pink. But that's
all right.
Actually, someone on a couple of episodes ago was like, "You look like you're going skiing."
I can't argue with that.
I had the hat and the sweatshirt. I'm just cold.
Sorry to hear that, Becc. Sorry to hear that.
Cold-hearted, so my body's cold.
My heart's cold. I was told.
Why aren't you wearing pink? Is the real question.
I only wear it when I'm skiing.
Really?
Yeah, I wear a pink hat, pink goggles.
You do?
That's my brand on the ski slope. Pink hat, pink goggles.
You know what, Keenan? I believe you. I really do.
There was nothing to, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, you know what? With that, we are on to the first.
With that awkward start, let's go on to our first section, man.
100%. I think it's just funny how both of us are wearing ski gear and Keenan's the only one that's not. So
and it was snowing today.
Really?
Really?
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's
Even
not anymore,
reason.
but it was.
I've lived in Texas, LA, and San Francisco, none of which were snow. So I don't even really know snow.
Yeah, same. Born and raised Texas. Snow only happens once a decade, I believe.
That's unfortunate. You guys are missing out. Don't know what to tell you.
Hey, with that, we're on to the first segment of this podcast, which is called Gaslit. So this is the segment where we ask Becc and Keenan questions that sales gurus strongly recommend that AEs ask on discovery calls. And they'll say if it's a self-diagnosis question and score the question. So the first one of today is, will solving this problem have any negative impact on blank? Becc, why don't you start us off?
Self-diagnosis question, for sure. You're asking for something that they believe to be true. And I mean, the punchline is I don't know. And even if I do know as the buyer, do quote unquote know, I might not be correct, which is your job as a seller to uncover. But even if that doesn't exist, bare minimum, best case scenario, you're telling them that you don't know what will happen to them. You aren't aware what will happen to them, so you have to ask them for their expertise on what will happen to them. So there's no point in you really being on the call.
And what would you score the question?
I'm in a giving mood. So I'm gonna give it a 2.5.
Oh, Keenan, what about you? What are your thoughts on this question?
What will happen if fill in the blank?
Will solving this problem have any negative impact on blank?
Will solving the problem have any negative impact? Oh, will solving the problem have any negative impact? No, I'm not calling that a self-diagnosing question, particularly from a sales perspective. Here's why. I don't know, and I may not know some things that are going on in the organization that are direct line. So in other words, I'm making this shit up, right? But to use an example, if I sell home renovation areas, right, and I say, hey, will solving this cause any other problems? I'm thinking outside of what is known. So it could be, I can't stay in my house for any particular time. I know that's coming, so you have to leave. I may know that you can't use the bathroom. I may know that the kids are all going to crowd into one bed. I could know that. But what I might not know is you've got an aunt or uncle coming. I may not know that you're pregnant. I may not know other things. So I love that question, actually, because there are things that I cannot know that are not a logical path that I want you to tell me so I can help you move through this process. So the minute I heard it is solve. By solving this, could it create anything? There's a bunch of stuff I wouldn't know, and I need to know it, and I couldn't get there on my own. I love that question. I'm giving it at what's my range?
1 to 10.
Let's go.
It's interesting, but couldn't you ask that in another way? Is my question. In every case scenario that I can think of, you could be more specific. So in definition, it is a self-diagnosis question. You're asking them what they believe to be true. So my question is, if you asked a question like in that case scenario, you're like, hey, do you have anyone coming in from out of town? Do you have any?
Yes, I could. Yes, I could. Becc, I could, but it's infinite. That's the point where I like this question. There are just too many things out there that I cannot anticipate that could be messing with it. So no, I like this one. I like this one a lot.
You don't like, my view would be it's got to be more specific at minimum. Do you have any people coming into your house, or are you going to have any more increased traffic over the holiday season, or is there anyone that you know that would diagnostically lead to?
Yes, I like that. So yes, you can ask that question, Becc. But the reason I'm holding my ground on this one is I can't go through them all. And I'm not suddenly going to ask them, is your wife pregnant? Are you thinking about getting pregnant? No, I'm not going to go down those roads. There's just too many things that could happen. I agree with you very wholeheartedly. That might be some real clear ones I could ask. But even if I ask those clear ones, I still love the question of no. Okay, is there anything I'm missing that could affect this that you're not? Right? I literally want the buyer thinking in this regard. So I'm not calling it self-diagnosing.
You're saying scale of 1 to 10. You grade this as a 10, that you recommend sellers ask that question in specific and discovery to close more deals.
Yeah, a 9. Yeah, 100%. Right? Yeah, 1,000%. But notice everybody can hear this. It's the question, if you solve this. So this is not a front-end discovery question. This is a question that comes.
Continue.
Right.
He was wrong anyway. You should have horned him.
Oh, spicy. Well, anyways, with that, we're on to the next segment of this podcast, which is called Street Smarts.
Keep going.
Well, this segment is called Street Smarts, and it is the segment where Keenan and Becc read advice that's told to AEs on how to run discovery and give out their take on the advice being given. So the first one of today, this one's a doozy. To run a killer discovery call, you have to be careful that you avoid not earning the right to do discovery. You have to grease the wheels to do discovery. So pro tip, try opening the meeting by telling a great customer story. Then say, enough about our customers. Tell me about your situation. And if you told a customer story that feels like a page from their diary, your likelihood of a great call will triple. Keenan, what are your thoughts on this one?
You don't tell a customer story to earn the right to do anything. Particularly in 9 out of 10 cases, that will be a different company than the one you're talking to. So that makes it even worse. So I had this customer that is a bank, and you're talking to a fucking oil refinery. You have a customer that they sold SaaS services like an outreach, and you're talking about a company that sold HR software. You just don't do it. Okay? You don't do it. You want to get the right to do a discovery? Let me help everybody out with this. This is so simple, Mr. and Mrs. Sales Guru who told people to do this. I agree you have to earn the right to discover. And this is how you earn it. I don't feel comfortable making a recommendation on how to fix your problems or making a recommendation of my product unless I understand that there's value. So I'd like some time up front to determine if I can actually help you. And if I can't, I don't want to waste any more of your time. Any version of that, it's I want to help understand how if you have a problem I can solve. And if so, then I need to understand that, because if not, I feel uncomfortable telling you my product works, making a recommendation of my product, even telling you what all the features and functions are, because I don't want to waste your time. That's it. That's all you need to do. I'm doing discovery for you as much as for me. Now, the problem with that is 9 out of 10 people do shitty discoveries. So they say that's the motivation, but then they just do discoveries to try to drive the client to hear something the client says. Like, there you go, pounce. They're looking to do a discovery to pounce, not to solve, to pounce. It's a big difference. So no, man, it's just pathetic.
Becc, what about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think at a high level, just kind of like discovery is an ongoing process. So is earning the right to do it. So my view is the faster that you can find something that they didn't know, that is how you earn the right to proceed, right? Because if I give you a whole bunch of information, I'm opening myself up to risk, number one. But number two, best case scenario, it's a waste of my time. So if I don't believe, and I have a proof point that that's not an exchange to something to my benefit, meaning something that I didn't know, then I'm going to start to shut down. So an example that's kind of beaming in my head is I was on a discovery call today, actually, and person goes into it. And at first it was just a call to talk about, hypothetically, could I train a French team, a French division, basically, in French. So we start going into it, and he's being rather short-lived in the discovery, but I'm like, I have to find something early, basically within these first 3 or 4 questions that's high impact that he didn't know. Otherwise, like he's not going to let me in. So I asked 4 different questions. And then at that point he says, so what do you think? What's your take? I'm like, well, this SQL rate, by industry average is actually relatively right on par. Your reply rate is actually higher, is 5% versus 0.5 to 0.7, but your open rate is only 18. So bare minimum, if you have less than a 50% open rate, you have an email deliverability issue. Do you have a custom tracking link? And he was like, no, what's that? I said, have you looked if you're blacklisted, or do you have your DKIM or DMARC or SPF certifications? And he's like, no. So then I go into the dangers of email deliverability and start diagnosing for him on the spot. I'm like, do you have subject lines that are all the same? He's like, yes. How many emails are you sending per day? He's like, 35. And I'm like, okay, so the 35 emails per day isn't causing it. But a custom tracking link is kind of like, if you know about it, you have one. And if you don't know about it, you don't have one, kind of thing. So his eyes just start lighting up. And it instantly went not only from that into a longer discovery conversation. His retort back was, do you train AEs too? And then he said, hypothetically, could you do global, not just French? And so at the end of it, like, we have, follow-up demo call tomorrow. But instantly he's like, I want to intro you to X, Y, and Z over all these other divisions just because of that email deliverability problem. So my view is and he was hard in the beginning, he was shut down, right? So I know that I have a shorter and shorter and shorter leash based on his experience with sellers, that I have to find something fast to quote unquote prove to him that I'm not like other sellers. But how I earn that right is not by, in my head, level setting, certainly not telling a customer story. This misdiagnosis, I'll sum it up, then we go into the second one. If you're prescribing to anyone on a discovery call, that they should start by telling them anything.
Yes, anything.
They
you don't tell them anything.
Customer story,
yeah, 100%.
downsides, any of that. I think there's a ghost in my house. Something just fell over. Anything, then it's a misprescription.
All
Can't
right.
tell them anything. Advice. Don't tell them a thing.
The next question of today, this one's also a doozy. This one says, to hold a great discovery call, it's paramount that you don't try to schedule the next steps without selling the hell out of it. If you run a pure discovery call, no demo, deck, etc., then you've got to make sure you sell the hell out of them taking a next step with you. If all you do is schedule the next step, taking for granted that your buyers bought into it, you'll deal with no-shows for days. Spend a few minutes selling why they should take the next step based on what they told you. Becc, why don't you start us off on this piece of advice?
Well, I think this piece of advice really, to me, why it's so egregious is this person views selling as talking well about something, right? So they're like, I should sell the next call by talking well about it and what they're going to gain and what they're going to earn and blah, 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 as opposed to selling as diagnosing. So it's kind of like a catch-22 in this case scenario. And I think something that stood out to me, and there's been a lot of hate across the industry of like, you shouldn't discovery without demo. And there's a lot of spicy opinions on it. And I'm like, the fact that most people, at least influencers, are scared to run a discovery call without a demo or a deck shows me that, like, simply put, they don't know how to fill up the time. They're nervous that they won't be able to add any value. And the value that they think it is talking about their product or talking about the services that they offer. So, like, in my opinion, simply put, if you run a discovery well, that is the selling of the next step, because how you sold is you found something they didn't know, which they found valuable. So they want to continue that experience themselves by going into the next discovery call or the next call where they can see the demo. So to me, like, the faster you find something, that is the selling, that they can trust you enough and it's worth it for them to open up that data. So they want to continue that experience by jumping on the next call. So it's kind of like the cathexis is like the main point behind why this is bad advice is the person believes that selling in the root is telling, period. Go ahead, Keenan.
So Becc nailed it. And what I wrote down is simply the advice that person gave to everybody is you have to sell the next meeting. Screams that they don't actually understand what an actual discovery is. Because if you've done a proper discovery, no selling for the next meeting is involved. And let me simplify this. I go to the doctor and they ask me a bunch of questions, and I'd say, yes, it's been hurting this long, and yes, this has been happening, and yes, that's been happening. And the doctor's like, I think you have pancreatic cancer or pancreatitis. Mm-hmm. And here's what happens if you don't solve it. He doesn't have to sell me, or she doesn't have to sell me on the next fucking meeting, dumbass. I'm done. Okay. Fuck, what's the next step? I literally just got off a call, first discovery call about an SKO. Let me tell you, I'm going to get buzzed. SKOs aren't too complicated. But within a minute, he's like, all right, so what do we do next? I didn't have to sell him anything. Hit me.
Keep going.
Hit me.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
I didn't have to sell him on the next meeting. He was like, okay, what's the next step? Because it was crystal clear. It was crystal clear. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're selling you on the next step.
Yes.
Like if I believe through your line of questioning,
yes,
that you have expertise, I want the next step.
Well, a step further, though, Becc. If I've got you to see through my discovery and questions that you have a problem that needs to be addressed, if by default, if you don't ask what next steps are, you're accepting the ownership and continuation of the problem. The only way to solve the problem is say, okay, how do we move closer to solving it? So if I've done a proper discovery and you admit you have a problem and you admit through your answers that you can't keep this problem, then by natural, whatever the word is, you're going to say, okay, what do we do now? Because we have to fix this. Mm-hmm.
Especially if I don't have the diagnosis. It's like you take these online quizzes to find out where you're at in relation.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Like, no, but I want the diagnosis.
Yes.
Especially if I believe your questions aren't leading and you have credibility to the way you asked them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Very well said.
All right. With that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Take It or Leave It.
This is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics and Keenan and Becc let us know whether they would take it or leave it. And the first one of today is hiring a sales enablement leader who's never sold. Becc, take it or leave it.
Keenan. I was trying to form the words, Keenan. Leave it. Leave it. Leave it. I mean, I think that a fundamental understanding of the role would be paramount, but I don't think it's the only thing. I think that you need, just because you're a good seller doesn't mean that you know how to coach, doesn't mean that you know how to train, doesn't mean you know, instructional design, how people learn, the instructional pyramid or the learning pyramid. But I'm definitely a leave it if they haven't sold before.
All right, Keenan, what about you? Take it or leave it.
1,000% leave it. 1,000. Now I'm flexible enough. I can't see a path this direction. I'm flexible enough if they never were actually an individual contributor. I can live there. I don't know how you're not one, but if you were a manager, if you were a VP or whatever, but you were responsible for a number, you had to manage to a pipeline, you had to do deal reviews, you had to engage in customer dialogue. If you don't understand how all of that works and you weren't part of it, there's absolutely no way you can be as effective as you could be. You just can't be. You just can't. You cannot read a book to figure out how to do sales enablement.
All right. The next one for today is splitting sales territories based on geography. Keenan, take it or leave it.
Leave it. Leave it. Leave it, leave it, leave it. We're in a completely dynamic world now. Completely dynamic world. So here's my asterisk. Unless you're in a world where your reps still have to physically go out there, that is a requirement of the sale, then of course I support it because there's operational efficiency reasons to do so. I cannot have a rep flying to New York and then flying here when I can put one and they can drive around. So yes, if you're in medical sales and you have to go to the hospitals, absolutely. But outside of a physical presence as being a key element of the sale, absolutely not. Absolutely, positively not. It's a waste.
Hi, Becc, what about you? Take it or leave it.
Yeah, or one accord. I'm gonna leave it for the same reason. The only thing that I'd add on top of that is, well, what it can cause is your reps are like, I don't have a good territory. Brendan has better territory than I have, and kind of fights back and forth and uneven splits. The only thing that I'd add that is a case that I could see that there is value in doing it is like international versus, there are different customs, traits about the people specifically around the thing that you sell. Like if I sell ski jackets and I'm in, I don't know, like Sahara Desert, right? So even though you can sell remotely, I feel like there's an inherent misunderstanding. Like for me, if I sell ski jackets and I've never even seen snow, it's going to be a little bit harder of a climb for me to understand what that cold feels like, what it feels like from the buyer perspective. But I think those are very, very niche cases. So by and large, yeah, I'm going to leave it.
All right. And the last one of today is homegrown sales methodologies. Becc, take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave it 1,000%. Because I simply put, don't think that people, I'm not comfortable thinking or believing that people will actually double down and find a method on their own that is super effective. Like, I just don't believe that they'll study it that much. So usually what you'll see is they'll like splice up Spin, Medic, Challenger. They'll be like, oh, I'm a gap seller too. And like mastering any one of those is going to be very, very difficult. And when you hybrid them together, you essentially have no methodology. And people are unaware that they don't whenever they do. Keenan,
close us out. Take it or leave it.
Oh my gosh. So it's a leave it. And I'm going to start with the motive. Why? Why do people build?
Cheaper and they think they know about sales.
What Becc said.
100%.
They think they know about sales.
They think they know.
What Becc said.
Wait, first of all, we have 33 seconds left on the clock.
No, we don't.
Does it show you 33 seconds? To me, it shows 0.
33 seconds.
0, 2. No, 0, 0.
Oh my gosh.
Well, hey.
Play.
With that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
The Inbox.
This is the segment where Keenan and Becc answer questions from our audience. And to help with that, we have our trusty new friend.
I was like, why is he so short?
Oh yeah.
And now I'm looking at the clock. It still says the same thing. 17 seconds left. Keep going.
Min's magical mailbox. That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
If you zoom in, you can see my face photoshopped onto Gandalf.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Min's magical mailbox.
Stickers are incoming. I'm getting them designed.
Still, I like that. I like that a real lot.
Well, hey, here's the first question. This one's from Bill Dennis, who works in backend automation. He asks, in prior episodes, it has been said that cold outreach is not as effective as in years past.
Keenan's a dead.
With that in mind, if it's allowed by your company, what are your thoughts about self-promotion advertising to bring inbound on an individual level? Keenan, why don't you start us off with this one?
I'm concerned because I don't think I understand what self-promotional advertising is.
My head goes to, what is that? I love you, man, where he basically puts his face on urinal cakes to sell.
Yeah.
Personal branding, I would think, would be.
I'm assuming personal branding.
Personal branding.
Okay, so this is personal. Okay, so everybody knows how I feel. Like, I absolutely think you should be creating content. That's what I think. So if I wouldn't build content around me, right? I'd build content around what I sell, the problems my buyers solve. Absolutely. Rachel May, who works for me, she coined a great phrase or term the other day called lighthouse content. I loved it. Lighthouse content. What does a lighthouse do? It draws ships to them and lets ships know where you are and what's going on and draws your attention to it, but also helps you avoid hitting things. But so, yeah, I'm 1,000%. And I'll go a step further. If your company doesn't let you leave. No company has a right to tell you that you cannot create your own content. And they technically can fire you, then go. You do not want to work for a company that's going to fire you because you're writing content on your own time. So absolutely, I'm full on, especially in today's world. The more attention you can bring to the problems you solve, the issues you're having, that your company solves, et cetera, the better off you are.
All right, Becc, what about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I'd have to ask a lot of questions. Like, I don't know what this person sells. I don't know if it's B2C or B2B. Usually B2C, it's going to work a lot better, like the promotional content. But the thing that's kind of scares me about this question is you said that in episodes past that cold outbound isn't working anymore. And that's how they're drawing the assumption. So number one, if it's working for you, then you shouldn't listen to what we're saying, period. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should just keep going, and working being defined as exacerbating past the quota that you need to be. But I would say that at very, very minimum, even if you're going to personal brand and do all that, I would implore you to focus on diagnosing why your outbound isn't working. Because at minimum, you have to do both. So how many calls are you making? How many emails are you sending? What's the quality, email deliverability? What time of day? Most people that I know are making sending calls and making calls and sending emails at 8 a.m. till 11 a.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when the best time is 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 5 minutes before the hour and after the hour.
Until it's not, by the way, because everybody listens to you and then they all do it, and then those people start ignoring you.
It's kind of like saying, well, if you just cut to 1,000 calories, you'll lose weight. The fact is that it's hard. That's why most reps don't do it. They have the most gas in their tank Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning. And so that's why they do. But Friday afternoon, they're like, no one's picking up. And I'm like, no, you're not picking up the phone to dial them, because it's harder. Simply put, it's harder. So I haven't seen that statistic over the last 10 years. It's a good point, what you're saying, but I haven't seen it simply and like shift, because people just want to make them early in the morning. But I would, at minimum, if you don't know or possess the skills to be good at outbound, I can't believe that you possess the skills to be good at selling, because there are two different executions of the same core tenets. Find a problem that they don't know. So I would, at minimum, even if you're going to personal brand, blah, blah, like, you can't personal brand. This is not fair. It says a minute 25.
I'm sorry. But yes, now we're even for this podcast for horning
Yes.
in.
She didn't even see it coming. You hit her on the upside. Bam! Whoa! What was that? That was awesome.
Loves hurting me.
Would you like to finish up what you're saying?
Outbound's working.
There we go. All right.
Sucks. That's
Well, with that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
The challenge.
this is the segment where Keenan and Becc break down a challenging subject within the sales industry. And today's challenge is how to know the difference between impact and pain. Becc, why don't you start us off on this one?
that's a good one. I dubbed it. Good job, Becc. Good job. You know, everyone just go out and put your face on some urinal cakes and just put them in some toilets. You'll hit both.
Wow.
Yeah, we're gonna clip that one out.
Wait a minute. How do you even know what a urinal cake is, Becc?
Because of that movie, he literally put his face on urinal cakes and put them in the toilets. And then when people were peeing, they were like, call whatever his name for real estate. But the idea of them, let me be frank, disgusts me. The idea that they
But
exist.
the other point is too, is it doesn't understand his market because he's only marketing to men. And in couples, most women drive the search process. So he's only getting to 25% of the people he could actually buy from. So it's a terrible idea. Next up.
Oh, wait, but that's not the subject. The subject was impact versus pain. Okay, so pain's any negative experience. And particularly where I think about pain is in regards to the metric, meaning their buyer persona metric is MQLs for marketer, for instance. They have to hit 5,000 MQLs and they're only at 1,000 for the quarter. Typically, yikes, right? But impact is the extended effect beyond that is the driver and the mobilizer for them to purchase. So because they're missing that metric, they're afraid that they're going to get put on a PIP and let go. And the economy's bad right now. It was their first role. And so they're going to have a really hard time, they think, getting another role. And they're behind on their mortgage and they have 3 kids. And all their family believes that they would never make it. And they have to go to Thanksgiving in 3 weeks. That all is impact, the extended effect. So what they're really solving for is that they don't have to lapse on their mortgage. Their kids can actually wear clothes to school. They can sit up straight at the Thanksgiving table. They don't get churned. They can keep the job just fine. But the problem that they're solving to do that, the business problem essentially, is that they hit their MQL metric, right? So in my head, and then I'm going to pass to Keenan, there's really 2 buckets of impact: personal impact and then business impact. Personal impact is going to be broken down to 3 different types of impacts. Persona impact, meaning in relationship to that metric that I was just talking about, what's the extended effect for not hitting the metric? The second type is lateral impact. How does me not hitting my metric affect the lateral program? So I'm not hitting my BDR quota, my SQL quota. And so all of a sudden the sales team is missing their quota. And so the VP of sales is pissed. And so there's lateral pressure. And then the third type of impact is vertical pressure. So because I'm not hitting my number, someone up the chain is not hitting their number. And so there's top-down pressure. So all 3 types of those impacts combined together, to me, encompass the personal impact. But it is always personal, meaning it is always anchored to the person and how they see things. What's going to happen to me if this thing continues to exist is always going to be the mobilizer to get someone, to start moving. So how does that lateral effect impact me? The VP of sales being pissed impact me. My SDRs can't go on to be AE, so I see churn, and now I'm behind in my metric even more because I got to ramp people. But the impact, simply put, is the thing that's bad enough, like why people are solving for cancer hypothetically, is the impact of an early death, right? As painful. right? It's not the current pain. It's usually what is going to happen to me that I believe to be true if I let this thing continue. And if you don't have that, you've got, I'm not going to say yet nothing, but you have close to nothing because you're missing the main reason of why they'd even consider changing in the first place. Keenan, what do you think?
Nothing to add.
What? This
Wow.
Nothing to add. That's perfect.
you made my heart drop twice.
Well, in that case, we're going on to the second challenge question of today, which is how to identify the metrics that buyers care about. Keenan, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think I would like to change the question, modify the question.
Is that allowed?
So
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, how do I understand, what did you say, the KPI? Is that the word you used?
No, how to identify the metrics buyers care about.
The buyers care about. That I solve. Because if I can't address a certain metric, then I have no business talking about it. None whatsoever. So that should be pretty easy. Because if I solve, well, I solve sales problems, right? I would argue you can't have a product if you haven't already thought about what problem your product is solving. So in my opinion, the only way that this exists, this environment that you're talking about, how do I figure out the metrics that matter to these people, is if you were hired into this position and your company didn't tell you what it is, now you got to go figure it out. Because that's why we have what we call the problem identification chart, right? The problems are an extension or an undercurrent, or whatever word you want to use, of the metrics that organization leverages in the area of which your product or service helps. So if I'm an accountant, one of the problems I solve is overpaying on taxes. Why do I know this? Because that's why accountants showed up on the scene. One of the reasons. Okay. I'm an accountant. Another reason, a problem I solve is of losing track of money. Why were accountants created in the first place? People couldn't keep track of their money. You see what I'm doing? So every single product or service existed because there was a problem in the market and someone came to solve that problem. So in my little bean, I don't even understand how you can be in a position of selling a product or service if you don't know what those metrics are, because the problems you solve are directly connected to those metrics. Mm-hmm. So in my little bean, the only way that happens if you were hired into a job and the company, all they told you was all the shit that their product does. And so it's spewing that, and they never actually told you why those features matter. And so I'd like to think you're smart enough to re-engineer it or learn it on the fly. If not, go back and ask the fucking product manager.
Becc, what about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, well, I think, to your point, that is a position a lot of times that they're put in. It's like, here's all the, in my head, there's two types of metrics. Well, there's three types of metrics people care about, but I want to draw a line in the sand between two. There's lagging indicators, and then there's leaning indicators. So a lagging indicator, simply put, is the output that someone is hired, fired, promoted, demoted to drive. Quota attainment, booked meetings or SQLs, MQLs, cross-sell, upsell, renewal, churn, employee churn. A leaning indicator is a real-time metric that you're on the right path, but is not the lagging indicator itself, right? So let's say no-show rate, for instance, or open rate, or reply rate.
Pipeline.
And pipeline, right. So like the difference there is a lagging indicator is the output that shows whether they're good in their role. That's where I'm anchoring the business problem. The leaning indicator is used to diagnose what root cause is wrong and if it was improved. So if I think my root cause is email quality for my SQL problem, I'm going to assume that because of a bad open rate and reply rate, And then if I changed my email quality, I'm going to look to that metric to understand if I improved it at all. Did I make it worse? Did it get better? And what was the margin? So it's really like a diagnosis metric. Buyers care about both, but they anchor the problem around the lagging indicator, and they look to the leading indicator as like almost like the real time, like clickbait junk food. And if you don't know both of those for the buyer, you don't know how they're anchoring a problem at all. So I would push people to just find out what both of those are for every buyer persona you serve, and anchor the problem around that and find out both. I can't get buzzed twice. I can't get buzzed twice. I figured it out, by the way, what crashed in the background. It was not a ghost for anyone who was worried about me. Not that anyone
Because that's what everybody was thinking. Oh my God, the ghosts are back.
I hung those, the shower things that you put shampoos. I was like, it's enough. I've got 15 bottles and they're on the floor and they're color coordinated, but stepping over them. And I tried to hang it myself. Full disclosure, I don't have expertise in that. So it ended up being crooked. I'm like, but I already stuck the sticker. So it just fell.
All right. Well, glad to know it's not a ghost, a French ghost, French ghost. But with that, we're on to the next segment of this podcast, which is...
Oh, listen, just one more thing.
This is the last segment of our podcast where Becc and Keenan share what's on their minds and give us their closing thoughts. Keenan, why don't you start us on this one? What is your just one more thing?
I'm changing it. I had something. I'm changing it on the fly. I want to talk about ghosts. I think ghosts are the greatest example of the human fucked up psychology, because everybody's afraid of ghosts, and everybody will tell you this. Everybody will tell you they've seen them, or everybody says they believe them, or they've seen them, or they're afraid of them, etc. But they're scared of them. But there is not one single example in the world where a ghost actually did something to somebody. Like, no one has ever said a ghost touched me and hurt me. No one's ever said a ghost
Carol. What about a Christmas Carol?
Becc, sometimes. Not how women feel when men do that to women, right? So no, in movies we do it, but we're articulating a fear in the movies. But if you just go in real life, everybody's afraid of, oh my God, what happened? There's a ghost in the house. But no one's ever been like, there's a ghost in the house, and then that ghost grabbed me and hurt me, or the ghost killed me. Even in the Ghost Hunters, it's always moving a book or making wind come through, or even, I saw them float by, but they never fuck with us. Like, they never actually physically hurt us. Why? Because they don't exist.
Ooh. I leave all my lights on. He knows this. All my lights on. I sleep with an eye mask. And then sometimes I turn off the lights near my bed, right? But then sometimes when I'm really scared, if I wake up and I feel like there's one there, I even turn those on and I put my eye mask back on and I start saying my mom's name out loud.
What makes you think a ghost can't be in the light? Again, it's all psychological.
I know, but I'm scared.
That's my whole point of my one more thing. It's all psychological.
I start saying Mimi out loud. And then I start thinking snowball until it
it's supposed to be 15 seconds, but Becc has pulled me out. So I'm gonna give you another.
Yours was so much longer than 15 seconds.
All right, then I'm
done. If I ever die, I'm gonna come back and haunt the shit out of you. You better.
No, you're not.
You're gonna be so scared.
You can't.
You're not gonna. I'm not.
Here's another one. Why are there no ghosts who weren't born yet? Once again, it's all manufactured on mine. Why are there ghosts who not born yet?
I'm not going to kill you.
Why is only a ghost after you're born? Where were you before you were born? You should be a spirit then too. And it's his reincarnation. It's a triple. Yeah, fuck this. Ain't no ghost. Ain't no ghost.
I'm not going to kill you, but I'm going to make you wish you were dead. Like, you're going to be so scared. I can get creepy, Keenan. We know this.
Becc,
I can get creepy.
You do that now, Becc. So why worry about when you're dead? Okay.
I creep you out. I creep you out. My one last thing.
Yes. What is your just one last thing for this week?
Y'all, here's the thing. And I'm going to do 15 seconds and then we close. Please stop taking selfies and putting them on LinkedIn.
Ooh.
Please, y'all, especially ladies. Please stop doing that. Especially ask yourself, does this actually relate to the post, and is it necessary, and what's my quantity here? Please. That's all I'm asking. That's it.
I hate to say it, and I agree with you, Becc, but I hate to say it. It works.
But for what? What is works? Define works.
It gets them a conversation. So now they have to filter through a lot of the garbage, and I'm not advocating for it. Oh no. I'm explaining why women do
those stats of like it gets them a conversation, but do they close? Do they respect them? Do they?
Oh, I bet it does. For the smart ones, I bet it does, 1,000%. I bet it's an incremental ad. How they're normally doing it, but if they put a picture out there, and if they're attractive women, more men read it, and then more men remember who they are. And if a man has an actual
on a business platform, why are we doing that? Why?
Becc, I am not disagreeing with you. This is where you need to be flexible. I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is I understand, and that should lead us into a different conversation, because I could take it to men and their unconscious bias of being gravitated towards attractive women, and then calling them or engaging with them simply because of their looks. And what women are doing, they're responding to that. I don't agree. I get where you're coming from, but we got to be real about there is a benefit or they wouldn't do it. There is a benefit or they wouldn't do it.
So I believe the likes are the benefit and the really the attention. But I'm like, I just hope for ourselves that if we really want to be seen seriously,
I agree with that.
It's like, just don't volley it up. It's my opinion.
All right. Well, that's our podcast.
All right, everybody. Thank you for having at it again. You have been listening to Sales Top to Bottom. Oh, by the way, I'm your host, Keenan, but Min, we got a message here that someone says they haven't been updated since October 18th. Is that true?
That is absolutely not true, because I have them on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Let me check right now. Yes, I see
Progress
44 on October 25th, 45 on November 1st.
Okay, so I forget. I'm looking for the person who said that, and I can't find it because it's not coming in fast enough, because we were disconnected. Oh, no, there we are. All right, I can't see his comment, but you heard it here first. Whoever asked that question, James Fox, they're up there. So go to Spotify.
I'll make sure to DM you with the links.
Cybersecurity, I can tell. I remember his picture, black and white. Cybersecurity.
Yes, black and white. Jimmy, they're up there. They're up there. All right. So
this has been Keenan, your host, and I'm
this has been Keenan, your host,
and I'm your other
top to bottom.
And I'm your other co-ghost back. See you next week.
Peace.